clearly done the wrong thing. It's not just across the Pacific and around the world, but it's also here in Australia, that long-distance truck drivers, people working in remote communities, in Indigenous communities, they won't have that access to shortwave radio. It is nothing short of a disgrace. The Sydney-based management of the ABC are completely out of touch with what Australians want.
Well, I think the key thing is really sort of, what audiences really desire and how that is really changing so rapidly with digital transformation. So, you really need the organisation to respond to those fast-changing audience needs very quickly. And I hope to be able to bring some of my experience, both from broadcasting and digital, to be able to do that.
There's a charter obligation that the ABC is meant to be there for all Australians, but there also ought to be a charter obligation to ensure that they fulfil that, and that's why I'll be putting up legislation as a matter of urgency in the Senate. And so far I've had some very interesting calls from people from the government, some senior people within the government who are really concerned about the ABC's decision.
The current ABC Charter talks about the restrictions in which we operate, or the environment in which we operate, and I'll continue to work within that charter, and also in terms of what the audience really desires.
Well, Michelle Guthrie has really dropped the ball on this decision, because the ABC Charter stipulates providing not only a comprehensive service for all Australians, but one which promotes a national identity. Now, axing the shortwave broadcast achieves neither a comprehensive service delivery nor the spirit of an inclusive national identity. Legally, the corporation cannot be forced to abide by the charter conditions, hence the need for legislation changes as slated by Senator Nick Xenophon. No consultation was conducted by the ABC with its listening audience regarding the impact cancellation would have on and the requirements of local and neighbouring remote communities. In all reality, the infrastructure just isn't there to make a 100% transition to FM and digital simulcast of the ABC programming. Now, the shutdown adversely affects remote bush camps, stockmen, offshore fishermen, long-haul transport drivers, Indigenous population, remote wildlife ranger services, and basically anyone traversing the remote areas of the Northern Territory, not to mention the neighbouring Pacific Islands where FM reception and satellite services do not currently exist on a large scale due to the lack of infrastructure and possibly low socio-economic conditions. Now, Radio Australia used to provide weather reports and, most importantly, weather alerts, national and world news, as well as impartial news sources to these areas that were not beholden to government regimes or dictators. Now, a petition has been initiated on change.org, but ironically, many of those who will be adversely affected do not have access to the internet for ABC streaming services, let alone to sign such a petition. Specifically, the populations of the neighbouring Pacific Islands, to whom Texon Australia only just recently exported some 500 shortwave receivers.
Some of our local radios within the Pacific Islands to have FM that cannot transmit to the other remote communities, and that's where ABC comes in as a vital information. If the ABC shortwave closes down, it will really be a big disaster. And
it could be a grade driver or a nurse or a doctor out bush, and they don't know any communications. It's all going to be isolation, which we are now already.
It was only in 1985, after extensive advocacy from the Aboriginal and remote Northern Territory communities, did the ABC actually formally establish the domestic shortwave service, with transmitters located in Katherine, Alice Springs and Tennant Creek. This slightly unconventional approach to broadcasting content is what set them apart from similar providers and endeared them with locals and DXs alike. I mean, how many shortwave broadcasters do you know who would openly play artists like Metallica? To counter mounting criticism, the ABC, through their transition program, are advertising all listeners of their online media, digital radio and transmission programming on the VAST, which is a viewer access satellite television network services currently using the Optus satellites. However, a set-top box and a satellite dish is required for these services, as is the case with the Asia Pacific services via the Intelsat satellite. Now, essentially no mobile services will exist, which is why the ABC Transition Program also recommends the adoption of emergency beacons, EPIRBs, and satellite phones for remote travellers. The ABC radio network and affiliates, as indicated on the preceding map, also displays the scope of no coverage areas for the existing services, as in many locations of Australia, including my hometown here of Mildura, if you drive in any direction for 100 kilometres or so, there's little or no radio reception at all. And it's even worse when you're striking out for further destinations like Broken Hill, where there's not even mobile phone coverage for the whole distance. Reportedly, the ABC has advised they intend to donate this vast equipment to the Royal Flying Doctors Service and four-wheel drive HF network stations should they wish to broadcast the information. This is basically the ABC abdicating their responsibilities. The flaw in this proposal is the satellite reception in general during extreme weather events is extremely impaired, if not completely unusable. At this point, or this stage, shortwave services completely eclipse all successive technology as far as reaching the listeners. It should be pointed out that whilst the Bureau of Meteorology currently broadcasts detailed weather information via their HF network from Charleville and Wiluna, a dedicated receiver with single sideband or a beat frequency oscillator are required. As of the closure of ABC shortwave services, Reach Beyond Australia, out of Kanara in Western Australia, is the only shortwave broadcaster left in Australia with a regional presence. Although Broadcast Australia currently retains a shortwave infrastructure purchased previously from the ABC, part of a rationalisation of assets, they may yet find another tenant for one of their sites. Should also point out that Radio New Zealand has entered the fray and has made a pledge, a promise, to the people of the Pacific Islands that they will step in and provide the services once provided by ABC Australia. So that's it. Gone. It's almost like sitting there watching a dear old aunt pass away.